What is going on, everyone? It's Toby Large here, bringing you some more fantasy EFL content. As always, it's time for double game week 12, which is quite possibly the biggest game week that we've had for the whole season. So I'm super excited to bring it to you, and we've got some amazing content today. We've got the world number 4 joining us for Experts Corner, which is also a Wickham fan as well. So obviously very excited about that, even though I'm doing us an injustice by not wearing a Wickham shirt today. But also we've got so much information to unpack. Obviously it's a massive double game week. So without further ado, let's not waste any time because I've got plenty to say to you this week. So before we get into all of the Game Week 12 stuff, we've got to recap Game Week 11. And before I start, I've just got to say thank you to everybody who's been supporting the channel recently. It actually means so much to me. We got plenty more new subscribers in last week, which really means the world, honestly. If you haven't subscribed already, please do, because there's just under 50% of people who are watching the videos aren't subscribed. So if you could do, that would be much appreciated. We're trying to hit 500 subs by Christmas time. I'm not sure if it's possible, but you never know with the fantasy EFL community. Hopefully we can do it. So if you've not, please hit subscribe. It would mean the world. And if you could hit like as well, it just helps to boost the content out to so many more people. And just thank you to everyone who tunes in, whether it's every week, whether you're just coming occasionally when you need a bit of advice or just a bit of company. I appreciate every single one of you. And feel free to get involved in the comments. Let me know your questions. Let me know what you're thinking about this week as well. I want to hear it all. Let's recap Game Week 11. This is the most unfortunate section on YouTube every week at the moment, because we just get to find out what went wrong for me, what was unlucky, what just didn't go my way. And Game Week 11 was pretty tough, to be honest. The average was so low, 24 points, which maybe tells you that the active player base has maybe declined a little bit, or maybe it was just a rough week. I know a lot of people did hit really low scores. 31 points for me was above the average, but I got about 100 place red arrow, so it wasn't too much, there wasn't too much in it. But yeah, just still disappointing. I want to be moving up when I'm ranked 12k. Like, I run a past and present league with a few people who just make a past and present team from their EFL side every week. And my rank in that, my overall score is 5,000 odd. I've got over half the rank in there that I do in my actual team, and I've got a pool of what 40 players to choose from every week. It's ridiculous. But anyway, I digress. Norwood and Leahy, they hit the lowest scores of the season. The two teams that I picked were first and third, respectively, in League 2 at the time, and they got 3 points between them. Cabia did get an extra interception. He got 2 interceptions given on the game. He only got 1 interception in the actual stats. So I guess I gained 2 points there, which was a little bit lucky, but Norwood hitting 3 points is just shocking when he'd barely hit lower than like 5 or 6 points all season. I'm pretty sure he had a 10 average before it. Leahy hadn't just hit a blank of 2 points. He got subbed off early. It's disappointing. It is what it is. I felt good about the team last week. Guinness Walker, they had the clean sheet for 65 minutes or so. Whatever. We move on. The double game weeks I'm always a bit more confident in, and it's a big double game week this week. So let's find out all the key information that we need for game week 12. So double game week 12, who's doubling? How is it looking? So every championship team is doubling this week, which is absolutely massive. There's some unreal picks to have a look at. But there's also 2 League 1 sides who are Reading and Northampton, and then the 2 League 2 sides who didn't play last week, Swindon and Notts County. They're both doubling as well this week. So super exciting. We've got 28 sides to pick from who are all doubling. I would advise everybody to just pick the double game week players. Sometimes a bet on just one, maybe single game week player can come good, but your chances are just so much more likely. Back the doublers, I'd always go for it. So let's have a look at the clubs who are doubling, who I'm really fancying this week. So in terms of clubs for game week 12, here are my highlights, the teams that I'm really looking at. We've got Coventry as the top club here listed, who they've got 12.7% ownership so far. I'm expecting that to skyrocket. In my opinion, if you go without Coventry this week, then you're a little bit crazy, because I just think that the stats, the numbers for them are ridiculous. Look at 2.49 expected goals per 90, 0.83 expected goals conceded per 90. Those numbers do not lie. That's ridiculous. They've got the best average league position that they're facing against as well. Blackburn, I do think that they could pull out a result potentially. But I just think they have struggled and they're not scoring many goals whatsoever. Similarly with Portsmouth, I don't think that Portsmouth is the perfect fixture, but it's better than a lot of the other options might be. Leicester equally, I think that they've got really solid fixtures too. The numbers for Leicester actually aren't great despite them being third in the table, but I do expect them to improve, and I don't think that backing Leicester is a bad option whatsoever. Swindon I've been so impressed with over the season so far, second in the league. Their numbers are outstanding. 1.6 expected goals per 90, which doesn't look like much compared to Coventry's numbers, but that is genuinely really, really good. And the defensive numbers as well, 0.93 expected goals conceded per 90, really solid. Stoke, good fixtures, their numbers a little bit in the middle, but like the fixtures, don't think they're a terrible shout. QPR as well, who are 6 games unbeaten. I think their numbers are made a bit worse by a pretty rough start to the season, but over the last 6 or so, really, really good. Ipswich, I really like the look of. Their numbers, outstanding, especially the attacking data, really, really good, but defensively good as well. I think they're just getting better and better, and expecting them to keep climbing up the table. And they play against Middlesbrough, who I think are in a bit of a false position, but they do have really, really good defensive data. And Charlton similarly are a good defence, so I'm not 100% on Ipswich because of the fixtures, but it's just that the numbers are really, really good. It's definitely tempting and worth considering, but do think that the fixtures are quite tricky. Similar to Preston, really, they've got, I mean, in terms of their league position anyway, they've been doing well. They're doing well. The defence has kept quite a few clean sheets, but I don't think that the numbers are amazing. The fixtures, again, I think are pretty tricky. So Preston, if they had better fixtures, I might be thinking about it, but the numbers aren't perfect, so I'd probably look away from them. But for me, it's between 4 teams. It's Coventry, Leicester, Swindon and Ipswich. Those are the 4 really. A punt on a QPR, don't really mind because of how good the form has been, but yeah, it's definitely between them, and got a few decisions to make in terms of the clubs, but there's some really good numbers on there, and Coventry just have to be in. I think that they're one who are definitely a shoe-in, and they've got to be in this week. There's some defenders with really, really nice numbers to choose between this week. So here's what I've got. Here are the highlights that I've got really. We'll start with Vestergaard because he's 8.9% on, pretty high. Again, expecting that to probably go up because I think that the fixtures are decent. Although Hull do seem to score quite a few goals, as you'll see with Ryan Giles, who's in here. He's in there because of his assist threat, his attacking threat. I've got in the honourable mention section. McBurney, we know, is on fire. So maybe it's not the perfect fixture, but I don't think that they're terrible fixtures whatsoever. They've got a few clean sheets. Vestergaard's got 2 goals to his name already. The attacking threat is decent. So maybe you want to think about Vestergaard in there. Alfie Jones from Middlesbrough. Middlesbrough's defensive data is really good, but I would only go for this if you're not going to back Ipswich. So I think if you're against the Ipswich picks, I would think about a Middlesbrough option. The Sheff Wednesday fixture really, really like for the Middlesbrough boys. Now the 2 Coventry players I've put next to each other because it makes things a bit easier. Between Thomas and Van Ewijk, and I think that I will I will have one of these 2 in my team this week. It's just making that decision who it's against. I think Van Ewijk probably has a bit of a higher ceiling, being the fullback and being the one who's, really getting up the pitch a lot more. But Thomas seems to find a way to get assists in Fantasy EFL anyway. And he's got a goal to his name as well. Both of their expected goal involvement data is really good, but I think that if we're being honest, Van Ewijk is expected to get that a bit more. So yeah, but Thomas equally is more likely to get the clearances, get the tackles, things like that in there. So it's up to you. It's all about personal preference. I think I'm leaning towards Thomas, but if I swap to Van Ewijk, it wouldn't surprise me too much. I think they're both really good options. Now with Leif Davis, really like him as a pick just because of the high potential. He's only got 1 assist so far this season, but we saw last season in FPL, quite a few people who are watching this, maybe you would have owned him or you would have been aware of him because of FPL, had really good attacking data then. He's just a very attacking player and he's got a really high ceiling. But as I say, Middlesbrough and Charlton, it's not perfect, but equally, they could just scrape through those games 1-0, they could draw 0-0 in those kind of games, so maybe it's worth considering, but it's a bit of a risky one, especially as you'll see with the average points being so low. Bree from Charlton, his attacking data has been unbelievable. Again, I would only back this one if you're not going to go for Ipswich players, but I think that Bree is worth considering. He's only played 5 games, but he's got 2 goals and 2 assists. Seems to be getting so far forward. 0.39 expected goal involvements per 90 is ridiculous, so definitely worth considering. And then a bit more of a typical defensive asset is Night Label from Swindon. This could have been Tafazoli, but as a Wickham fan, he also played for Mansfield. He's always had a really bad injury record, and Taff not playing one of the 2 games wouldn't surprise me, or if he came off injured in either of them, wouldn't surprise me. Who do I prefer out of Taff and Night Label for 1 game? I would go for Tafazoli, but because it's 2, I would go for Night Label. But their defence has been so good since Taff came into the team, but I just think that Night Label's a bit more, I feel a bit safer with him than Taff. But equally, I don't think Taff is the worst pick, just a bit more risk involved with him. And then, yeah, so a couple of the other honourable mentions. I've spoken about Giles, spoken about Taff there. Lloyd Jones from Charlton. If you want a bit more of a safer pick in terms of the bonuses, rather than Bree, I would go for Lloyd Jones from Charlton if you want a Charlton player. I love the Sheff Wednesday fixture. It's just the Ipswich one that's a little bit scary. And then Pereira from Leicester. Will he start both the games? I don't know, but he's got such good attacking threat. If he starts the first one, maybe you'll be tempted. Those of you who are the gamblers, who are the punters, maybe Pereira is a choice to go for. Let's move on to the midfielders. Now in midfield for game week 12, my goodness, look at the average points of some of these assets that are up for grabs. Genuinely, there's just some ridiculous attackers this week, and I'm super excited to go through them and to have a look at them because there's so many different players to consider for different reasons. I'm going to start with Sorba Thomas, and this is one of those assets that I'm a bit of a hater for because you know me, there's a few players that I seem to pick out, and Sorba Thomas, just because I'm from the Blackburn area, I've got a lot of friends who are Blackburn fans. They did not like Sorba Thomas at all when he was at Blackburn, but obviously a player can improve a lot in a short space of time. But he's never been a player who's lit the league on fire, who's lit the world on fire, and I think he's got 7 contributions in 9 games so far. He's doing ridiculously well, obviously. Is he going to keep it up? I don't know, just purely based on history, but he's obviously in really good form. The fixtures are really good. I'm probably a bit crazy for just basing this off my past experiences with Sorba Thomas, but when I've watched him, I've just never been impressed. But equally, I'm more of a database manager, and the data suggests that he's one of the best options to go for. I'm sure a lot of people will fancy Sorba Thomas, but that's just my personal thoughts. Because I've said that now, he's probably going to go and get 30, 40 points in the week. So let's see what happens. Torp now, again, I think he's massively overperforming the attacking data. I prefer Thomas to Torp 1,000,000% because Thomas is actually an attacking player. Torp is more of a holding midfielder. He's got a lot of license to get forward, obviously. Coventry just flying. He's taking a lot of shots, but they're nearly all outside of the box. But the expected goal data isn't terrible. I think the points are going to drop off for Torp at some point, and he's not going to keep this form up. But he's still a really good shout, and definitely worth considering. But I just prefer the attackers and the defenders for Coventry to Torp. If you're going to play the one club chip, I'd by all means have him in and expecting him to get back in the team and play in that game as well. Lewis Swing next up. Routes to points is the key here, and he's pretty similar to Torp, I guess, in that aspect, in the fact that he can get interceptions, he can get goals as well. I think that the fixtures are a bit tough for Reading this week. Cardiff and Northampton are 2 pretty solid defences, actually. But Wing, he could get 3 interceptions in a game, or he could get 2 goals in a game. Equally, he could obviously get neither, but I think the chances of something happening with Wing are pretty solid. And he's very similar to Barry Bannon as well in that aspect. They're 2 assets I don't think are too far from each other, but Bannon's numbers have just been more impressive this season. We'll talk about Mehmeti now, who I still really like as an asset. He's dropped off over the last few weeks, but we've spoken about Anis so many times. One of my favourite ever players for Wickham as well, it's worth mentioning. His attacking data and threat is just so good. He's going to be on penalties. He's just not had a chance to show that. I'm fairly sure that he'll be on penalties this season anyway. Average points is ridiculous. The expected goal involvement is great, and there's no penalties involved in that. 0.62 XGI per 90 is crazy for a midfield option. So, yeah, I do like Mehmeti. I think the fixtures are relatively tough, but Norwich and Southampton, neither of them in great form, so maybe you want to go for it. Now, Loser, I think that's how you pronounce it. That could be wrong. Apologies if it is, from Watford, but he's just been in imperious form. The Sheffield United fixture I really like, which I never thought I would have been saying at the start of the year, but I think that he's a great asset for this week, and the interceptions have been great with him as well, and the attacking data is just crazy. So really one that's worth considering. I think he's only played 6 games as well, so 8 interceptions in that is nuts, with 2 goals and 2 assists in there. Really thinking about him this week. I don't like the West Brom fixture, but it is at home, but the Sheffield United fixture, really liking. And then Jordan James from Leicester, who's the man who we've got the picture of at the side as well. If there's any Leicester fans watching, or anybody who thinks that they know, is this guy going to play in the 10, or is he going to play further back as like a holding midfielder or a bit of a box-to-box? Because I've looked at the different Leicester lineups and he seems to have played both. The data to me suggests that he's playing quite far forward, but maybe he's just, got really involved in the few games that he's played so far. But the numbers just look great for him. So I think he's one that you've sort of got to consider because he's got really good fixtures with Leicester this week. They're obviously a solid side who are going to improve over the course of the season. And one that I'm really thinking about, actually, because Portsmouth and Hull is a great set of fixtures. Could really be one that's going under the radar. But BDK and Brannigan from Oxford, I think, are two really solid shouts as well. Windass from Wrexham, I really don't mind in any given week because I think he's going to be on penalties, and he's one of those who's playing as a real attacker but listed as a midfielder. And then Price at West Brom, I think will start to come good again, and his minutes seem to be fairly solid most of the time. But that form has just dropped off. But if you really want a punt, I don't mind any of those honourable mentions. But love some of the picks on here. Picking between them is going to be really tough. I think I know which two I want, but I'll get into that later on in the video when I do my team review. On to forwards next, and I love chatting about the forwards section every week. It's always super exciting. This week, I genuinely think that I am actually going to go for two strikers. I've threatened to do it before in the past, I've mentioned it. But I think that this is the week when two strikers is really going to be a popular option to go for. I've put at the top the two Coventry boys together just because it's easier to speak about them as a pair. As I've said about them a few times now, I like the fixtures. They're not perfect, but I think that they're one of the best sets of fixtures that we've got over the double. Haji Rai, his numbers are just crazy, but equally Thomas Asante's numbers are really solid as well. Picking between the two is going to be tough. Like I say, I don't think that using the one club chip is the worst thing in the world. I'm backing 5 Coventry players, whatever you fancy in there. You could go all 7 if you wanted to. Because having the strike partnership with these two, they've just been scoring so many goals. The expected numbers are ridiculous. Look at both of their XGI per 90. That's crazy, the fact that they're from the same team. I think I'm leaning towards right because he's going to be on penalties as well. But if you're one of those brave ones who wants a bit of a wild card, Thomas Asante is definitely still a really good option. Sargent's form over the last few games has dropped off. I don't think he's scored in his last 4 or 5 games. But he's good. He should play 90 both games. He should be on penalties, so I still don't think it's a bad shout. Bristol City's form's dipping. The Derby fixture's nice. The XGI isn't perfect, but really don't think that he's a bad option whatsoever. McBurney is just absolutely on fire, and it's really hard to see a team without him in it this week. But equally, the fixtures aren't nice. Birmingham away is really tough because I don't know if they lost a home game all of last season in League One, or if they did, it was very few. And equally, I don't think they've lost at the start of this season in the Championship either at home. And then the Leicester fixture is obviously really tough too. So, yeah, McBurney, I do think that he's just like the talisman, and if they're going to get goals, they're going to come through him. But it's still really tough fixtures. So, one to ponder, one to think about. Adam Armstrong and Jack Marriott, I'm going to talk about both of them at once here because they're both 1.2% owned. And I'm just really liking the look of both of them. I think that Armstrong, with the injury that happened to Ross Stewart actually last week, I think, was it last week or the week before potentially, is going to mean that he's going to play 90, I would imagine, in both games, or at least he's going to get a lot of minutes. Should be playing through the middle, should be on penalties. I think that he did miss a penalty earlier in the season, so maybe that could put you off in terms of the penalties, but I think that it's a really good differential. As you can tell, I'm a little bit excited with that one. And then Jack Marriott, I think he's got 6 goals. Is it 5 or 6 goals in 5 games, something like that? It's crazy. He's on fire. The XGI isn't great, but he just seems to sniff out chances and score them. The fixtures aren't perfect, but he's in a purple patch, 100%. And then Jatta as well. Don't mind the fixtures, but he's a home player. He scored all his goals so far this season at home, I think, or I think he might have blanked in every away game, possibly, something like that. The Barnet fixture, I don't mind. The Swindon game is obviously tough. So I think between them, it's not perfect, but it's not terrible. If you want a bit of an outlier and a bit of a riskier one, I don't think Jatta's a bad shout whatsoever. And then the honourable mentions as well. I've got to talk about Richard Coney because the guy is just ridiculous. And I do think that Richard Coney will score a hat-trick at some point this season. It's just when it is, but he's got such a high ceiling. And then Palmer or Drinnan. If Drinnan's back fit, I think he goes in my team. I think that I'll put him in, and that's a bit of a no-brainer, but I'm not expecting him to be. I've heard that it's an Achilles injury, so usually you would expect that to be a couple of weeks, and I can't see them risking him starting 2 games when he's just been pulled out of a team through injury the other week. So, yeah, I think it's a bit of a risky one. So then maybe you want to go for Ollie Palmer, who's the sort of alternative option up front for them. But then if Drinnan comes back or he takes some minutes off Palmer, not too sure about, but don't think that Palmer's the worst shout in the world. There's just some really good options in terms of strikers. I'm loving the Marriott and Armstrong shouts. I even like Jatta. For some reason, I just like him as an asset. But then McBurney, Wright, Thomas Asante, Sargent, they're all just unbelievable. I think that Wright's going to go in my team. It's just deciding who that second one is, which we'll talk about in a little bit. But for now, let's get into the experts corner and see who this week's expert is picking. Welcome back everyone to the experts corner, where we get one of the top ranked managers in all of Fantasy EFL onto the channel just to discuss their first draft and who they're looking at this week. This week we've got Callum Jefferies on, who is a Wickham fan, so big up to Callum. The guy's an absolute legend. He's the world number 4 currently, and last year he came 19th in all of Fantasy EFL as well. So in terms of average positions from both years, I really don't think that there can be many better than Callum. And in my opinion, based on his decision making, the players that he seems to pick, the way that he just seems to do well every single week, I genuinely think that Callum could be the best in the world at Fantasy EFL. So big up to Callum. High praise, I know, but he deserves it because he's a Wickham fan as well. I really should have worn a Wickham shirt this week, shouldn't I? Because of this section. But without further ado, let's see who this legend is picking this week and see if maybe a couple of the options might be tempting us to take, not copy him, but take a bit of but to take a bit of inspiration from his picks this week. So let's have a look at who Callum's looking at.
In goal, I've got Connor Ripley of Swindon, and I like the defence, but I don't think I can go for any of the defenders because of minutes, and I'm not really sure who will start there. And Swindon have been unlucky, I think. Should have kept a few more clean sheets. In defence, I've gone for Bobby Thomas and Dale Fry. I think with Thomas, it's a no-brainer for me with their defence and the way they've been playing. He's going to start both. He's a threat from set pieces. And you can probably say the same for Dale Fry as well, with the way they've been defending. I think best defensive numbers in the league. Didn't really want to go for a full-back, and I don't think Sheffield Wednesday are particularly good from set pieces, so could potentially score a goal there. In midfield, I think Mehmeti is probably a lock for me. It's not really a Bristol City stance, but more of a Mehmeti one with the data and the fact he's on penalties, getting minutes. I think in the double, it's important to go for the guys who are getting the minutes, because 180 over 120 or 30 is really important. So yeah, Mehmeti, probably my captain, but I'm not 100% sure. And the other one, Lewis O'Brien, who took me by surprise, to be honest, with the way he's been playing further forward for Wrexham, getting chances, taking corners. I considered a few others, but I think Lewis O'Brien is where I'm leaning at the moment. I'm not normally 2-2-2 kind of guy, but Josh Sargent's in my team for starters. I think, again, like Mehmeti, he's got the minutes. He didn't travel on international duty, penalties, and I don't rate Norwich at all, but I think it's just a Sargent stance rather than a Norwich one. And the fixtures are decent. And then with Palmer, it just depends on Drinan and whether he's going to play or not, because if Drinan's playing, I'm not sure on Palmer's minutes, and it could lean me towards Adam Armstrong or someone like that. So yeah, that's not locked in, but probably going 2-2-2. And for the teams, I'm on Coventry and Ipswich. Coventry, non-negotiable for me, really. I think just by far the best team in the league from what we've seen so far. I don't really need to overthink that one. And Ipswich haven't been amazing, but they are getting better, and the fixtures are pretty decent. Didn't want to use Swindon again, I've had them twice, so Coventry and Ipswich for me.
So there's Callum's first draft for the week. Genuinely looking really good, I think. Obviously, he probably knows better than me, to be fair, so I shouldn't be sat here critiquing him because of how good he's been over the course of the last year or so. Yeah, really good stuff. I'm actually a little bit surprised at the Palmer pick, because I think that there's a few more sort of nailed-on players, and I would have expected 2 Coventry players to be in there as well, but maybe that's where I've been going wrong, sort of backing just the big teams rather than spreading my options out a little bit. Love the Mehmeti pick as well, and I'm sure that there's a little bit of Wickham bias in there as well for Callum. But yeah, the team looks really good. O'Brien, somebody who I've not mentioned, but there's just so many options in the midfield this week. I do think that he's a really solid shout as well, and like the fixtures too. No Stoke, and he's actually going against Stoke with a Wrexham player in there, which is interesting, and definitely something to think about. So love the team, Callum. Thank you so much for coming on and showing your face as well. It takes a bit of bravery, so big ups to you. Now let's have a look at my first draft. Here's my team selection then for the week. I actually really like the team, to be honest. A few of the players on the watch list I'm really debating putting in, but for now, this is what I've sort of landed on. Johansson in there, his save points are just really good. They were really good over the course of last year as well. So even if he doesn't get a clean sheet in some of these games, which I think is really possible that he does, I'm pretty sure that he will get a couple of save points at least over the double. And then Thomas has been so good that could turn into Van Aywick, but prefer Thomas for the bonuses a little bit more. Night Label as well. Back in Swindon, love the fixtures this week, but equally could end up being Vestergaard there. I think that Thomas is more nailed to be in the team. Mehmeti and Loser, or Louser, however you pronounce it, I think they're both really attacking assets, and just their data is absolutely standing out to me. Mehmeti on penalties as well. Love that sort of midfield too. And then 2-2-2, the first time of the season that I think I am going to back two strikers. I'm fairly sure that I'm going to do it. I've got Haji Wright and captaincy as well, which I've not captained an attacker for, I don't even know, maybe since the start of last season, to be honest. So it feels a bit bold, but going for it. And Armstrong as well, both of them should be on penalties. Armstrong's form's really started to hit recently, and I think that that could be just my differential for the week that I'm hoping is going to help me to gain on people, but you know, with my luck, we probably won't end up doing. And then Coventry and Swindon as well, just love both of their sets of data, love their sets of fixtures, so really feeling confident with that. I'm not actually sure if there's an early kickoff player in here. Could potentially be Swindon, but I might be wrong there. So I don't know about the vice captaincy, but it shouldn't really matter because I think over the course of a double, you're not going to do the vice captaincy trick anyway. That's just what I'm thinking at the minute. McBurney and Marriott, they could come in for Armstrong. Wing, I'm tempted by as well. Like one of those Reading boys, I kind of want to get in there. I don't know, it's really tempting. Some tough choices this week, but that's where I've landed on at the minute. Thank you so much for tuning in, everybody. That's all we've got time for, which I'm sorry that this has probably been my longest video that I've ever put out. It's been a very long one, but there's just so much information for the week. It's the biggest game week that we've had, I think, over the course of the season, and a real chance to gain because I love some of the sets of fixtures as well. Do sort of wish that I still have a max captaincy for it. I'm sure that some people will want to play it this week, but equally I'm confident in Haji Wright, and I think that I will probably end up backing him, although backing a striker feels crazy. He's got the hat-trick potential, so you never know. If you're not subscribed, please do subscribe. If you've watched all the way to the end, you're an absolute legend. So if you haven't subscribed, you might as well come on. It's free. It helps me out so much. And press like as well if you're still with me. Thank you so much for watching. I wish everybody the best of luck for the week. I hope we will absolutely smash it. And hopefully we'll be coming back here next week with green arrows all round. It will be here the same time, the same place for Game Week 13. Love all of you lot, you bloody legends, for watching. Good luck for the week, and peace.